Hey friends, family, followers, and subscribers. It's another video here today about, you guessed it, Supernatural. Bing, 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 bing. But today's video is not so much about the mythology or the plot as much as it is about one specific character. And that character is Dean Winchester. Yes, you guessed it. If you haven't seen my top 10 favorite fantasy characters of all time, recommend it. Here's a link up here. But I'm here to talk to you about Dean today. Dean is my favorite character just across the board. And so I wanted to examine him because it gives you a little bit of extra depth when you're thinking through his shortcomings and when you see some of his moments of stagnation. Definitely has a lot of those. But that being said, a lot of his moments are just pure gold. Some such moments include when he tells Sam in season 4 about his time in hell and how he was tortured and eventually broke down and tortured souls right back. That was really cool. Seeing him go from having this charismatic bravado on one end to having such rich pathos on the other in a matter of like 2 minutes really showcases the complexity of his character. And so why I say the complexity of his character is because when you first meet Dean, you think he's just this swaggering douchebag, womanizing, functioning alcoholic, not to mention just badass hunter. You think you're like, what? He doesn't really seem like he has a lot of depth. But then once you learn more about his relationship with his father and how he was, as he puts it to Mary, a father, a mother, and a brother to Sam when they were growing up, you start to realize he not only was he forced to be a parent when John was away, he was also asked to be a brother. And so not only did he have to run the household, he also had to be a sibling. And so where the drawbacks come in from his character, he has a hard time trusting authorities. And that's really interesting because you would think when you first meet him, oh, he's this really cocky, arrogant, charismatic, self-confident person. But then you peel back the curtains once you earn his loyalty to see he's broken. He hates himself. He doesn't believe in his brother. And his brother is the most important person in his life. Later on, that becomes different. But for the first 4 or so seasons, Dean's faith in Sam is limited. But then you get Swan Song and things change somewhat. The reason why this is a defining trait for Dean is because Dean values absolute loyalty to his family, and the longer you spend with Dean, the more you realize he's in need of Sam's relationship with him. And so losing Sam would mean being all alone in the world, even though he has Castiel, he has Bobby, and eventually he gets Jack. Not to mention Crowley and Charlie and Mary for a time when she comes back. But that's another layer for Dean but if he tries to do something to save Sam, it ultimately has world-altering consequences. And the run of the show is all about Sam and Dean saving people, hunting things, the family business. And that's one of the reasons why Dean is so interesting. He can't live without his brother, but yet every time he tries to save his brother, he ends up creating this massive problem for everyone else. And so that is very conflicting for him because he will find oftentimes that in order to escape that cycle, it means extreme sacrifice. And that is one of the biggest things the show does so well, is showcasing Dean's struggle to let Sam go. Now, ultimately, what that means is
Dean is afraid to be alone. And that's something I think we can all relate to, whether you have a religious faith or you don't. You know the feeling of wanting to be a part of a family. And that's why Dean is so groundbreaking as a character, because he sees the need for family. He sees the need also to get a job done. But his first and foremost priority is family. That is incredible.
Another thing to consider about Dean is, in my personal opinion, I think he's kind of a commentary on today's image of what masculinity has been for such a long time. The reason why I say that is because Dean, again, like I've said earlier, he struggles with his emotions. He struggles with expressing those emotions in a healthy way. And oftentimes he doesn't express them in a healthy way. But what makes it interesting is the way he's characterized is that he comes off, again, very much masquerading as charismatic, cocky, arrogant, confident, but inside he's not. And so a lot of men do struggle with that in the moments when he does open up and he does show that emotion. Props to Jensen Ackles for showing that so well. He deserves an Oscar and an Emmy, in my opinion at least, because he's such a versatile guy. Dean's a commentary on that because he does want to hide those emotions, but he knows they will eat him alive. And that is a call to a lot of us men who really struggle with those emotions. And so to see a character that really brings the heart, but also the brains and the brawn to the screen is encouraging, so that men don't have to hide behind this mask and that they can actually express emotion in a healthy way.
While Dean's first and foremost priority might be family, he still has to consider how his consequences or how his decisions will ultimately impact the world. Dean is not a dumb character. I will rag on Andrew Dabb for a second and say the guy did not do Dean a solid. He made Dean into kind of a joke the last season, which Dean is not a joke. Dean is a freaking badass. So treat Dean Winchester with some freaking respect. But no, Dean is very smart. And you've seen that a lot just throughout the series. But something else about Dean that I really value is his compassion. Whether or not he likes to show it, Dean really, really does care for the people around him. He cares for Charlie. He cares for Bobby. He cares for Cass. Eventually, Jack as well. Jack is a special case, though, because Jack is the spawn of Lucifer. And it again goes back to the whole nature versus nurture debate. Do you become what you were conceived to be, or do you become what your choices decide you will become? And I look for that in stories. I look for that in characters because it hits home. Because we all have a sense of agency, whether we like it or not. And that is important. We have agency. Whether or not your theological views might line up with that, but we have agency, and that's great. However, do your choices define you, or does your background define you? That's one of the key issues that Dean also wrestles with. But as seen in his relationship with Sam, you see that he begins to understand there's a little bit of both, but it's also the choices that we make. That's one of the key themes of the series, free will. You have the right to choose your own path, and that's beautiful. So, that being said, like, subscribe, let me know what you think in the comments below. Peace!